cat in the wall, eh? Okay, now you're talking my language.
You ever drunk Baileys from a shoe?
Oh, great. Thanks, Mother, for replacing the baby aspirin with LSD.
How much you want to make a bet I can throw a football over the mountain?
Welcome to the View from C-Deck, fresh off Casey Dyer, the Direwolf, just splitting his pants. Isn't it? Looks out like somebody was playing the drums in his kitchen there. It's gambling week, baby. It's gambling time for week 9 in college football. I think you did sum up my thought of the games for the week, and they're pretty much a big fart besides Ohio State. So for once, though, we always start our big podcast for gambling with Ohio State. But let me bring back the Direwolf here after missing last week. I told you all he was dead and murdered by his bookie, but turns out not dead, or maybe he's just back, and his bookie's sitting there, gun to his family's head, making him do podcasts to make him make some money back so we can pay him. But Ohio State this week, biggest game of the week: Ohio State, Penn State. Ohio State 15.5 or 15-point favorites, 16 depending on where you look right now. We're going with 15 though. Over under 61 as well. The Buckeyes have been rolling and stomping everybody they've played since Notre Dame came into the shoe. This one's at Penn State, though, where we were just discussing on our Buckeye podcast. We can't remember the last time that the game was decided by more than 15 points in Happy Valley. So all the history says take Penn State. But if you look at the current state of affairs and what happened to Penn State in Ann Arbor a couple weeks ago and how Ohio State's been trouncing everyone, the line seems a little low, like in the ballsy pick territory, which all of that points to maybe picking Penn State. But what do you think there, Casey? What do you have for this weekend?
I really think we're just got to get off the tracks or get hit by the train type of game by us. I honestly think we cover more so because of the defense than the offense.
Mm-hmm.
Our defense is just rolling right now. They're going to put our offense in great position. We're going to get more possessions than maybe we have in previous matchups with Penn State. Might be a little bit of a slow start. I can see Penn State even having the lead of like 10-7 or something in the first quarter. But then once we get our feet under us, I don't see them keeping pace. I see this being like it depends, I guess, how it starts. But worst case scenario, I'm thinking like 38-21. Which that would cover. That's the worst I see it being. That would be the under, though.
Mm-hmm.
But best case scenario, I see it being like 45-17. So somewhere in the middle is still covering the over. So I'm saying we're going to cover and the over.
Yeah. I don't trust Sean Clifford in big games. I trusted him once this year, and I totally forgot, and he let me down against Michigan. So I do think we cover. I think I'm going with the under, though. I think it'll be a little bit lower scoring. Like you said, I think our defense is what holds it to the under. I think they hold Penn State at least in check enough that I don't think they're breaking 20. I don't think they're holding us under 30. So I think the most likely scenario is we cover, but I don't think we're going to go score 50 on them like we keep doing against. But we've done it against Wisconsin and Iowa, who are traditionally great defenses. Maybe not so much this year, and maybe Penn State's not either because they gave up 400-plus rushing yards in a game once this year, which should never happen, no matter who you are playing. So other than that, though, not a great slate of games. I think only one other top 25 matchup or one other one only worth talking about, and that's the Tennessee game. But we're going to start Thursday for me because one of my junk picks, I went 2-3 last week. Casey Dyer here, the Direwolf, went 4-1. Finally threw it down on Vegas, said, give me maybe that is why he's back. That's why he's not dead. He wanted it back. He's back in survival mode. I'm taking picking the Utah game, though. Utah -7 at Washington State, late night, Thursday night, 10 o'clock. So you can watch it after you get done watching a terrible Thursday night football game from the NFL, whoever the hell's playing this week, because they all suck. But I got the Utes covering. They've been my squad most of the year. Washington State, I think, is fake good. They've had a lot of close lines and some close games. They should have beat Oregon, and by far were the closest team to beating them since Georgia trounced them. They beat Wisconsin, which we thought was a good win, But turns out it's not. Of course, now maybe it is. Now that Paul Chris is fired and they're rolling, I don't know. But I think the Utes cover the 7, though. I think they're playing well. Had 2 tough games with UCLA and USC back to back, and I think that's why they faltered against UCLA. Other than that, though, they pretty much dominated everybody else they played this year, minus the Florida hiccup week 1 too. You have any thoughts on this game, Casey?
I did think about picking this with Utah, but I kind of stayed away. I've been all over Utah this year, like you have, and they've let me down a couple times, so it's kind of steered me away from them a little bit. I do think they'll win, but I could see it being more like a nail-biter field goal game.
Yeah, I don't think I've been able to pick a Utah game correctly this year.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I should stay away from them. Who should I go with? Oh, I was around on Ole Miss. I don't think OSU's been by far my best, and I don't like to pick them. OSU was one of your picks, by the way, as was Jason, not one of mine. So it's a Haas handy and a Dire Wolf delight, a handy delight. Another nooner game, Notre Dame and Syracuse, kind of flipping the script on who's good and who's not this year. Syracuse gave Clemson all they could handle last week. We're up 21-10 at halftime, got shut the F out in the second half by that good Clemson Tiger defense. But I think they've proven themselves as an actually pretty good team, probably a top 25 team for the year. Meanwhile, Notre Dame struggles to beat like terrible Stanford teams and Marshall teams, but they do have the only win against North Carolina, so they've been able to win games against good ACC teams so far. Casey, you picked this as one of your delights, though. Who you got?
I picked it right before this. I believe I had Notre Dame. Syracuse, I just think they're a pretender. It was a complete joke to see Clemson storm the field in that game. What a laugher that was. I mean, they did give Clemson all they could handle. I think Clemson isn't the Clemson of the 16 to 20 seasons have been. I mean, they replaced the quarterback in that game. That should tell you all you need to know about Clemson. I mean, that was the difference. But yeah, Notre Dame is one of those teams that can keep games close.
Yeah,
I mean, they did it with us. They've been in all the games that they've lost, even though they've been to bad teams. But
yes.
I mean, it is only what was it, like a 3-point spread?
2.5. So
yeah. So it's also on that ballsy pick kind of line where last week you could argue they should have beat Clemson and they're only 2.5-point favorites. So all of that included in the equation, I had Notre Dame.
Yeah, but they were huge dogs. So Vegas, I think, just doesn't believe in them. So I don't think it's a ballsy pick. So I'm going to take Syracuse. I actually think they're pretty good. Statistically, they're really good on both sides of the ball, and they gave Clemson everything. They're not going to be consistent on offense, though. That I know. That's why the over/under is only 48. It's pretty low. But yeah, Notre Dame's just. I mean, they could definitely. I would never actually bet on this game. If it was me, I would not pick it as a confidence game. But yeah, I'll take the Qs though. I'll take the R's. I think they have enough in Notre Dame. I just don't know about them, man. Marcus Freeman's got his hands full, I think, at the moment with the way they've struggled, especially offensively. Another noon game. This one picked by the Haas's handies. No, it was by you also. Sorry, never mind. TCU playing at West Virginia, going to Morgantown, bringing all the blankets they can to douse out the couch fires they're gonna be burning. Especially if the Mountaineers somehow pull off this victory. But TCU's it's down to 7 now, so I'll give you that in case instead of the 7.5 you picked, if you'd like that. Maybe a half point in your direction, but I think I'm with you. I like TCU. They played such a hard schedule lately. It is a little bit of do they finally have a letdown? And they were down big to Kansas State, and Adrian Martinez got hurt. So was that a real victory for them last week? Then they won by 10 there at Kansas State. But every time I think I would pick against them, they've proven me wrong, and I actually think they run the table this year and make it to the playoffs now. Maybe. Maybe they lose in the Big 12 title game, though. What do you got You have TCU covering, yeah.
I got TCU covering. It's kind of more about West Virginia. I think they're a big pile of doo-doo right now.
They have been lately.
You're right. I mean, it could be a letdown. I'm not sure who TCU plays next week, but it seems like Big 12 every week there's somebody, a big opponent coming up. So they might be taking them lightly, which would concern me a little bit. But I do think TCU, now that Texas lost last week, I mean, they have 3 losses now, but it's basically down to them and Oklahoma State for who's probably the favorite to win the Big 12. But that spread seemed pretty low to me.
Mhm.
I see TCU winning by double digits easily.
I think there's a pretty good chance. Their quarterback's so good, I'd expect to see him in New York come Heisman time. I don't think he's going to win it, but I think it's pretty clear it's going to be either Hendon Hooker or C.J. Stroud at this point. And it seems pretty clear that the media wants it to at least be pushed that Hendon Hooker is going to win it at this point, the way it's being portrayed. But yeah, I think Duggan actually he's really impressing me. Their whole team impresses me right now. I think they're doing some good things.
Cool.
A game that we won. Go ahead.
Corum will probably be in there as well, I'm guessing.
Not after we hold them to like -6 yards.
Yeah, true.
3:30 games, number 1 team in the country, world's largest outdoor cocktail party, Florida and Georgia. Game that was looking great after week 1 and now looks like an easy romp for the Bulldogs. -22.5 point favorites. Both the Haas with his handies and myself with a junkie handy pick Georgia in this game. I'm not a believer in Florida at all, and I think it can really get away from them quickly because Richardson is very inconsistent at quarterback. Even though he's a great talent, he's missing a lot of what it takes, especially in terms of accuracy. And that's a killer against Georgia, who has had more close games than they should have lately. They just thumped Vanderbilt recently. But other than that, they've had some close ones. I think they're looking to establish themselves. I think they take this one pretty easily, something like 48-14.
Yeah, I thought about taking it too, and then that's making me think it's going to be a real close game now. But yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I think they're out to prove something. I mean, everybody's talking about Tennessee. I mean, Bama's lost, and they're still number 6. It seems like not a whole lot of people are talking about Georgia, and they're the number 1 team in the country. So I could see this being a complete blowout, like you're saying.
Yeah, I think it comes in out like that. Another 3:30 game in the Big Ten that all 3 of us picked this game, but not all the same. Illinois traveling to Lincoln to play Nebraska. Illinois, the surprise team in the Big Ten West, and they're in the driver's seat now for sure. Even with the early season loss to the worst team in the Big Ten East, Indiana. So, see you, Big Ten West, like get the hell out of here with this crap. But Burt is going to go and be the sacrificial lamb in Indianapolis, I think, to either Ohio State or Michigan. Ohio State. You and I both picked Illinois, though, -7.5. The Haas, though, got ballsy and picked Nebraska. It is a little bit of a low line. It could be in ballsy pick territory here.
Yeah, it could be. It could also be that, I mean, it's not Scott Frost's team anymore, but they, in the past couple of years, they've always played really close games no matter who they're playing. So 7.5, I mean, they've had single-digit losses every loss since Scott Frost. So that could be part of it. Illinois has a great defense. They don't really have they have a great running back, but not necessarily a great offense in general to write home about. So it could just be a low-scoring game in general, which might contribute to that low spread. But I think Illinois is just more talented in general than Nebraska. So that low spread pointed me to pick Illinois.
Yeah, number 1 defense in the country right now. And
Yeah.
it's not even really that close. Like they're pretty far out there, and I think they're legit. And they have a legit running game, and those things, just what Burt was doing at Wisconsin, marrying a good running game to a good defense and then beating the crap out of people. And I think the Nebraska's beat the crap out of them, but it wouldn't shock me to see this be a relatively close game. But I still think like at least win by 10, like something like 28-17 sounds about right. But it should be worse than that if Illinois' defense really is that good. The Big 12, like you said, always having a big game every single day, it seems like. And I almost picked this one, Oklahoma State and Kansas State. Oklahoma State getting 1.5 on the road against this Kansas State team that may be without Adrian Martinez, though. Actually, I did pick this game. I'm like you, yeah. So I picked Oklahoma State because of that, mainly the fact that Adrian Martinez may not even play. And I think they are legit top. I think them and TCU are the two best teams in the Big 12. And I think they've both proven it. They just had a nice win against Texas last week. Jason also picked out another junkie handy for you guys. Just Matt's junk and the Haas is handy. Oklahoma State blew up your parlay, didn't they, last week? Or getting close to blowing up that Texas parlay. So I assume you would think they would do this, right?
Not completely. They have screwed me in games that they should have won all year long. Should have beat Bama. Should have freaking beat, Texas Tech when they lost in overtime and Bijan Robinson fumbles in the open play in overtime. But if they went out, I still win my parlay. So it's still possible. The mullet magic could happen.
Do you have for this game, though, Oklahoma State and Kansas State? Oklahoma State getting 1.5 on the road.
I almost did pick it. I would pick Oklahoma State all day, especially because of that quarterback controversy. I'd say maybe there could be a little bit of letdown because the emotional factor. They were behind the majority of that game to Texas. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the J.T. Barrett coming back against Penn State and then blowing his load against Iowa.
Yeah.
That could be a factor, so I stayed away from it, but I'd pick Oklahoma State.
Game you did pick. We have to talk about El Stinko. I mean, you picked an El Stinko of an El Stinko game. Iowa -11 against Northwestern.
I did.
Well, go ahead. I'm going to take a nap while you talk about this game.
I did, and I will say we completely dominated them by 44 points, right? But their defense impressed me because of the complete ridiculously bad situation that the offense kept putting them in. They held us to 4 field goals with average starting position of like the 30-yard line, whatever it was. And that's against arguably the best offense in the country. I think it's the best. It could be Tennessee. We'll find that out later, potentially. But Northwestern, I mean, they have lost. I think they've lost 6 in a row, something like that. I mean, they're arguably
7. They haven't. Their only win was the opener against Nebraska.
Yeah, they are one of the worst teams in all of Power 5. The spread is low simply because of Iowa's offense being terrible. The over-under in that game is like 38.
Yep.
Something like that. But I think Iowa's defense is just so good that Northwestern might muster 3, which means Iowa only has to score, what was the spread?
11.
They have to score 14.
Can they do that? I don't know if they can.
Pretty close. But it's more about Northwestern. I think they're that bad. And I think Iowa can muster 17 points. I think they can, especially if they get 7 from their defense.
I just hope that there aren't any small children watching that game and seeing the ugliness that's going to unfold. I'm not going to pick it. I will pick the under. I will pound the under on that. 37.5. You couldn't make it low enough for me. If you made it 10, I might still take the under in this game. Okay, nightcap though. The other big game of the day, big game of the day, kind of. Tennessee hosting Kentucky, coming in. They're both ranked, I guess. But Tennessee only 12.5 point favorites at home, but they've had 3 relatively big games this year, and they've all been decided by 1 score or less. So I can see why this is not really in ballsy pick territory. But I'm getting the feeling with Tennessee that they've kind of found some magic with that win against Alabama. There's a lot of confidence, and that offense is rolling still, and the number one offense in the country now in yards and points. Even though I think our Ohio State's offense is probably a little bit better and definitely more well-rounded, it's still very impressive what they were doing there in Tennessee. So I picked them minus 12.5, and I believe the Haas though went against me in this one and took Kentucky plus. Yeah, he did. He took Kentucky plus 12.5. What do you think is going to happen in Neyland? Back to the scene of the crime from the Alabama game.
I stayed away from this one because I wasn't sure. I mean, Tennessee's going to win, but they tend to. I mean, they tend to play in shootouts, and shootouts typically are closer than 12 points. But I think Kentucky. I mean, they're a basketball school, right? This is Tennessee's year for them, for their standards. They're back. They beat freaking Bama. But like you said, I mean, they've been in close games every one of their big matchups, so that's why I stayed away. But if I had to, I would pick Tennessee by, what was it, 12.5?
Yeah.
Yeah, that number scares me a little bit, but I could see him win it by 14.
Yeah, I'd say like 48-34 or something sounds just about right.
Yeah.
They did blow out LSU. We forgot about that. They blew out LSU, who looks pretty good now after their blowout win over Ole Miss. But I don't believe in Kentucky is mainly where I'm at with that too. I don't think they're ready to stop. Like they don't have the horses to stop that offense.
Yeah.
One last game we'll do just to keep an eye on the enemy, the big battle, big brother versus little brother, Michigan and Michigan State. The $95 million man, Mel Tucker, struggling like crazy. Michigan giving up only 22.5 at home seems low to me. I almost picked this game for Michigan. But this is a rivalry. Weird things happen. Maybe it stays a little closer than it should. I don't see any way Michigan State actually wins this game, though.
Yeah, I almost picked it too. I was going to, and then I saw the spread, and I'm like, damn, it's pretty high. It's a rivalry game. They're gonna kick their ass. They're pissed off they lost last year.
Mm-hmm.
But Michigan
still hasn't beat both us and Michigan State in the same year. But go on.
Yeah, so that's why he's going to beat them and not us.
Yeah.
I don't know. Michigan State's their defense is just so bad, man. Their biggest weakness is pass defense, and that's not really a strength of Michigan. So that's maybe why it's not as high as it could be. Like their best part of their defense is rush defense, I guess, Michigan State. But I don't know. If I had to pick this, it'd be Michigan.
Yeah, McCarthy is the 10th rated passer in the country, but he has a ridiculous 77% completion percentage because he just throws short passes like the whole game.
He only has like 10 touchdowns.
9.
Yeah, he has 9 touchdowns, maybe like 1 or 2 picks. It's just because they don't throw it a ton.
It's 77% completion percentage. That's leading the country, but I mean.
Yeah.
It's not for that many yards. It's not very high-risk stuff that they throw. Not that you have to against Michigan State, but I mean, it's just the only thing keeping me away from this is that it's a rivalry game. We've seen a lot of weird stuff happen in this game, just like it does with us in Penn State. But for 22.5, but I think Michigan covers. I really do. All right, as we do at the end of all these podcasts here, I changed my picks last week a little bit, by the way, after. We saw some Utah win over USC. There was a little more shaking up going on. I went ahead and moved Tennessee into the playoff now, and I have, I believe, Ohio State, Georgia, Tennessee, and Clemson in. Clemson almost blew it for me, but I think I have Bama out now. I think maybe Georgia just wins out and beats Bama, or Tennessee wins the rematch. I just feel like Bama. I said last week in the podcast by myself that was their last chance for them to impress me against Mississippi State. And obviously their defense did. Their offense still wasn't great. Bryce Young still wasn't great. I just don't think they have it this year to beat the best teams. So I think, and obviously the Ohio State-Michigan game is going to be huge. Whoever wins that, I think, is in the playoff for sure. Because whoever plays, Michigan plays Illinois in the regular season, so we'll get a preview of that, I guess, if that happens to be the Big Ten championship. But I don't see either one of them getting held out. But I think the UCLA losing this past week. We're down to TCU as an undefeated P5 team. So we could have undefeated from everyone but the Pac-12. I think that eliminated the Pac-12, and I think the likelihood of 2 SEC teams went up a ton with that loss, with Oregon being the one winning just because Georgia beat Oregon so badly. So it's going to be either Georgia put up against them maybe if Oregon wins the Pac-12, or somebody who beat Georgia put up against them, and I think that's going to win out. Have you changed your views, though, on anything over the past couple weeks?
I actually have not, believe it or not. Tennessee, but I don't think Tennessee's going to beat Georgia, which means Tennessee's not going to the SEC title. I have us in it. Clemson's, I wouldn't have even thought Syracuse was a challenge, but apparently it is. So they're past their biggest challenge.
Yeah.
So they're in. SEC champ is in, which I'm all about Saban and a pissed off Bama, and I think they're going to beat Georgia in the SEC title, and Bama and Georgia are both going to be in.
Very good chance that happens. I had earlier, but I've changed my mind on Bama a little bit. Yeah, I just don't know what's off with it. They're just like the 2015 Buckeyes. There's something just off. I can't put my finger on it. I mean, their defense looks great some games. It couldn't come close to stopping Tennessee in that game. And their offense looks great some games and can't score, but they've had several games where they can't score. I don't know.
They do that season, but it's. I mean, I hate Alabama with a freaking passion, and I don't like Nick Saban, but I respect him. He's obviously the greatest coach of all time. They freaking lost, and he was pissed off about a number of things in that game, and that is the last thing I want to face is a pissed off Alabama. The last time they played Georgia, they lost to them in the biggest game of the year. So I don't see Ole Miss beating them. They got kind of exposed against LSU. So the odds of Bama making the SEC title are pretty high at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just all comes down to who wins that Georgia-Tennessee game. If they play Tennessee, it's a rematch who just beat them. If they play Georgia, it's a rematch of a team that just beat them last season. So they got that revenge factor no matter what. So I'm thinking it's going to be Bama that wins, and then it's just whoever wins that Georgia-Tennessee game for that 4th spot. I think that it's going to be 2 SEC teams almost no matter what.
Yeah, I think so too. Here's a fun one though. If TCU does run the table and Clemson trips up somehow, right now the top 4 offenses in the country in order: Tennessee, Georgia, TCU, Ohio State. Boom. There's a good playoff right there.
And we got the best. Well,
Georgia number 2 in total offense and number 2 in total defense right now.
Yeah. How can you? Yeah.
Number 4 and number 2, or number 4 and number 5, something like that.
Yeah, I sent you a text. Statistically, it's crazy to say this, but
we're number 2. Yeah, number 4 and number 2. We're better on defense.
we have a better stats on defense. We're number 2 in yards on defense. We're number 4 or 5 in points.
5, I think. Yeah.
We're like 3rd in passing yards, and we're like 8th in rushing. Then if you go reverse, this is all by memory. I didn't write it down this time. And if you go reverse on offense, we're 2nd in points. We're like 4th in yards. We're 14th or 15th in pass, and then we dropped way down to like 22nd or something in rush.
Yeah, Iowa did number 1 on our running statistics. That's for sure.
So statistically, just looking at the numbers, our defense looks better than our offense. And now, obviously, I understand we've played better defenses than offenses, but we're 7 games in. I mean, eventually those numbers don't really lie.
Yeah, I think we're legit on both sides. Georgia's legit on both sides, and Tennessee and TCU have two of the best offenses in the country, and they could ride them into the playoff. And then Bama's always lurking, but their defense is ranked. But their offense and their offense is like around 15, and their defense is like around 40 now. Like it's Bama, yeah.
Yeah, and Tennessee and TCU's defense are probably like 40, right?
Tennessee's, I'm not sure about TCU.
Yeah.
Let me look at Bama real quick though. Maybe they're higher. I'm underrating them. Oh yeah, they're around 20 in defense too. They're around 20. TCU. Oh god, let me look at them real quick.
Oh, and Tennessee's defense is 20.
Bama.
Oh, okay.
Tennessee's like in the 40s. You're right.
But if you go by those major stats on offense and defense, we are clearly the number one team in the country, and then Georgia is second. And I'm not sure who third is. I guess maybe Michigan, if you just go by the numbers.
In what, offense?
Offense and defense combined.
Oh, I don't know. Illinois, maybe. No, not their offense. Probably Michigan. Yeah. Michigan in defense.
We are head and shoulders number one.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it for this week. We'll go through our picks real quick here. I had Utah -7, Oklahoma State +1.5, Illinois -7.5, Tennessee -12.5, and Georgia -22.5. Casey here, the Direwolf, had for his delights OSU -15, Indy +2.5, Iowa -11, TCU -7.5, and Illinois -7.5. And Jason's junk was OSU -15, Oklahoma State +1.5, Nebraska +7.5, Kentucky +12.5, and Georgia -22.5. We picked a lot of the same games this week, all three of us. Probably because it's a bunch of crappy games. But that'll do it for us here at the View from C-Deck. I'll let Casey go back to shit in his pants. And like us, subscribe, comment how you can smell his fart from where you're watching this podcast right now. And follow us on Twitter at View from C-Deck. And we'll see you guys next time.
Hey guys! Whoa, big gulps, huh? All right. Well, see you later.
A rich man's world.